A Super Bowl winning veteran quarterback, a former MVP, was benched for going sightseeing. That is the story that broke the internet. But what you didn't hear is that this single, unbelievable act of professional self-sabotage happened at the exact moment a rookie quarterback was not only making his first start, but was also facing down a 30-year curse that had swallowed 17 men before him. This wasn't just a game in London. It was an organizational exorcism. It was a bizarre, chaotic, and almost poetic clash of two quarterbacks that may have finally, mercifully changed everything for the Cleveland Browns. This is a story of a team confronting its own toxic history and accidentally stumbling upon its future, all in one ridiculous, unforgettable weekend. The Cleveland Browns flew across an ocean for a football game, but what they found in London was something far more dramatic, a full-blown organizational exorcism. In a single bizarre weekend, the Browns didn't just play the Vikings, they confronted the ghosts of their chaotic past, broke a curse that has haunted them for 3 decades and may have accidentally stumbled upon their future. And it all happened while one of their veteran quarterbacks was reportedly benched for committing an act of such breathtaking unprofessionalism. It sounds like a rejected plot from a comedy movie. Rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel was named the starter, tasked with facing not only a formidable Vikings defense, but also the crushing weight of a 30-year curse. 17 straight Browns quarterbacks had lost their first ever start, a streak of futility so long it has become a legend of NFL failure. As Gabriel took the field, another story was breaking. A bombshell report that sent shockwaves through the league. Veteran Joe Flacco had been benched because he allegedly skipped a team walkthrough to go explore the sights and sounds of London. You heard that right. While his rookie teammate was preparing for the biggest moment of his professional life, a Super Bowl winning veteran decided it was the perfect time to play tourist. The absurdity is almost poetic. This single ridiculous incident became the perfect symbol for everything the Browns are trying to escape, while Dillon Gabriel's stunningly composed performance became the embodiment of everything they hoped to become. This wasn't just a game, it was a tale of two quarterbacks, a clash of two cultures, and a moment that may have finally mercifully changed everything for the Cleveland Browns. To truly understand the magnitude of what Dillon Gabriel accomplished in London, you have to understand the curse he was up against. This wasn't just a statistical anomaly, it was a dark cloud that has hung over the franchise since 1995. 17 different quarterbacks. 17 times a new face stepped under center filled with hope. And 17 times they walked off the field with a loss. It's a legacy of failure so profound that one fan famously wore a jersey with the long list of starting quarterbacks' names written in Sharpie, each one crossed out like a casualty of a never-ending war. The names on that list are a who's who of first-round busts, journeyman backups, and fleeting flashes of hope. Tim Couch, Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Kaiser, Baker Mayfield. All of them, regardless of talent or draft pedigree, were swallowed whole by the Browns' quarterback graveyard. The jersey became a symbol of the franchise's perpetual dysfunction, a revolving door of misery that seemed destined to spin forever. So when rookie Dillon Gabriel, the 18th man to attempt to break the streak, was announced as the starter, the collective groan from the fan base was almost audible from across the Atlantic. They had seen this movie before, and they knew how it ended. They braced for the inevitable mistakes, the deer in the headlights moments, the crushing weight of history proving too much for another young quarterback to bear. But from the very first snap, something was different. Gabriel didn't look like a curse victim. He looked like a man who had never even heard of it. Against a defense coordinated by Brian Flores, one of the most aggressive and unpredictable minds in the entire league, the rookie was the picture of calm. He stood in the pocket with a poise that defied his experience level. His reads were quick, his decisions were sharp, and his throws were decisive. There was no panic, no hesitation. He looked like he belonged. His final stat line was a model of efficiency. 19 completions, 190 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It was a clean, professional, and commanding performance. He wasn't just surviving, he was executing. He was leading scoring drives, converting crucial third downs, and most importantly, he was protecting the football. He played with the composure of a 10-year veteran, not a rookie making his first start in a foreign country with the ghost of 17 failures staring him down. For the long-suffering fans watching back home, it was a revelation. For For the first time in a generation, a rookie quarterback wasn't just another name to be crossed off the list. He was a reason to believe. He was the antidote to decades of chaos. While the team may have ultimately fallen short, Gabriel's performance was the undeniable victory. He had stared down the curse and hadn't even flinched. He had given the franchise something it hadn't felt in years, a genuine, unadulterated sense of hope for the future of the quarterback position. But while Gabriel was busy making history on the field, one of his teammates was busy making headlines for all the wrong reasons, creating a circus that threatened to overshadow the most promising moment the Browns had experienced in years. Just as a sliver of hope was beginning to pierce through the perpetually gray Cleveland sky, the Browns did what they always seem to do. They reminded the world that the circus is never far from town. The report dropped mid-game, delivered with a tone of stunned disbelief by the broadcast crew. Joe Flacco, the veteran quarterback, the former Super Bowl MVP, had been made inactive and benched. The reason? It wasn't an injury. It wasn't a strategic decision. He was benched, according to the report, because he decided to skip the team's final walkthrough practice to go sightseeing. Let that sink in. In the critical hours before a crucial international showcase, while his teammates were making their final preparations, Joe Flacco was allegedly out playing tourist. You can just picture the scene. While Dillon Gabriel was in a dark film room, breaking down Flores' exotic blitz packages, Flacco was perhaps queuing up for the London Eye, snapping a selfie in front of Big Ben, or trying to figure out the tube map. The sheer audacity is mind-boggling. This isn't a college freshman missing a class. This is a multi-million-dollar professional athlete abandoning his team for a day of leisure. The reaction in the studio was immediate and summed up the feelings of everyone watching. For real? You can't do that, man. You can't do that, bro. The crew erupted in laughter, not out of pure comedy, but out of the sheer unadulterated shock of it all. How do you even process such a profound lapse in judgment? Within minutes, the internet did what it does best. The story went nuclear. The phrase "Explore London" began trending worldwide. The memes were instantaneous and brutal. One photoshopped Flacco into a classic red telephone booth holding a map with a confused look on his face. Another depicted him in a classic Sherlock Holmes hat with the caption "Joe Flacco investigating why he got benched." The creativity was endless, a digital cascade of mockery aimed at a player who had committed an act of professional self-sabotage. But beneath the humor, a familiar sense of frustration began to bubble up among the Browns faithful. This was the same old Browns narrative playing out in real time, just when it seems like the organization is finally turning a corner, establishing a sense of professionalism and focus. A story like this breaks, reminding everyone of the franchise's chaotic DNA. Every time we start to look serious, somebody does something dumb enough to remind the world who we are. One fan lamented on Twitter, a post that was liked tens of thousands of times. The conversation then took a more serious turn. The commentators began to discuss the broader implications. It wasn't just about missing a practice. It was about a stunning lack of discipline and situational awareness. In today's world, the security of high-profile American athletes abroad is a legitimate concern. For a player to venture off on his own, breaking team protocol was not just unprofessional, it was reckless. It was a betrayal of the trust placed in him by the organization, his coaches, and his teammates. The joke quickly lost its humor and was replaced by a sobering realization. This was a profound dereliction of duty, a moment of selfishness that undermined everything the team was trying to build on a crucial business trip. The contrast couldn't have been more stark or more symbolic. On the field, the rookie Dillon Gabriel was a portrait of focus and maturity. Off the field, the veteran Joe Flacco became the poster child for distraction and entitlement. The Browns had flown 3,000 miles to showcase a new era, but the ghosts of the old one had apparently stowed away in the cargo hold. The fallout from Joe Flacco's alleged London adventure was not contained to social media mockery. It set off a firestorm inside the Browns organization. The incident reportedly set off a firestorm, forcing head coach Kevin Stefanski to confront the cultural rot that he has been trying so desperately to eliminate. This wasn't just about one player's mistake. It was a direct challenge to the very foundation of discipline and accountability he is trying to build. According to sources within the team, the initial reaction in the locker room was one of laughter and disbelief, but that humor quickly faded as the severity of the situation became clear. Veteran leaders were reportedly furious, pulling Flacco aside after the news broke. The message was blunt and unforgiving. You're not a rookie anymore. This isn't college. Grow up. They understood that an act of such blatant selfishness reflected poorly on every single player in that locker room. It reinforced the national perception of the Browns as a dysfunctional, undisciplined team, a reputation they have been fighting tooth and nail to shed. Kevin Stefanski, who has built his coaching identity on a foundation of process, preparation, and a no-nonsense culture, was said to be livid. He reportedly addressed the entire team in a closed-door meeting, and his message was scathing. He reminded them that the trip to London was not a vacation. It was a business trip. It was an opportunity to represent the franchise, the city of Cleveland, and the NFL on a global stage. Flacco's actions were not just a personal failure, but a collective embarrassment. One insider described the scene, saying, "Stefanski was as angry as anyone has ever seen him. He views this as a direct betrayal. He is trying to establish a new standard in Cleveland, and for a veteran player to pull a stunt like this, it undermines everything." This incident became the ultimate test of Stefanski's leadership. It's one thing to preach a culture of accountability, it's another to enforce it when a high-profile veteran steps so egregiously out of line. The decision to bench Flacco was swift and decisive, a clear message to the rest of the roster that no one is above the team. This internal turmoil serves to highlight the monumental importance of Dillon Gabriel's performance. In the midst of this self-inflicted chaos, the rookie was an island of stability. He was the living, breathing example of the exact professionalism and focus that Stefanski was demanding from the rest of the team. While one quarterback was creating a PR nightmare, the other was quietly going about his business, studying his playbook and preparing to face a hostile defense. The juxtaposition was not lost on anyone within the organization. This incident inadvertently created a powerful teaching moment. The coaches could now point to two clear examples: the path of selfishness and distraction, which leads to the bench, and the path of diligence and preparation, which leads to opportunity and respect. The Flacco saga, as embarrassing as it was, may have unintentionally done more to solidify Stefanski's desired culture than any team speech ever could. It provided a real-world, high-stakes example of the consequences of poor choices, while simultaneously elevating a rookie who embodied all the right ones. The saga of the bench tourist and the curse-breaking rookie is more than just another bizarre chapter in the long, strange history of the Cleveland Browns. It is a perfect microcosm of the franchise's eternal struggle, the constant, exhausting battle between its own worst impulses and its desperate desire for a brighter future. For decades, this has been a team at war with itself, a collection of immense talent perpetually undermined by a culture of chaos. Think about the Factory of Sadness, the infamous Johnny Manziel era with its inflatable swans and off-the-field drama, the endless cycle of coaches and general managers, each promising to be the one to finally instill order, only to be consumed by the same dysfunction as their predecessors. The story of the Browns has so often been one of self-sabotage, of finding new and creative ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Joe Flacco's decision to explore London fits perfectly into this painful narrative. It is the quintessential same old Browns moment, an act of such bewildering unprofessionalism that it feels scripted. Another unbelievable headline in a franchise that has produced far too many of them. It speaks to a lingering entitlement, a lack of seriousness that has plagued the organization for years. But this time, something felt different. Because while the Flacco story was a rerun of an old, tired sitcom, Dillon Gabriel's performance was a preview of a completely new show. He represented the antithesis of the Browns' chaotic past. His composure, his focus, his quiet leadership. These were the qualities the franchise has been so desperately searching for. He wasn't just a talented thrower, he was a professional. This is why the reaction from the fan base, once the initial wave of mockery subsided, shifted towards something resembling cautious optimism. They have seen flashes of talent before. They have been burned by false hope more times than they can count. But what they saw in Gabriel was something more than just talent. They saw stability. They saw a player who wasn't going to be the headline for the wrong reasons. In a strange way, the Flacco incident, by providing such a stark contrast, may have been the best thing that could have happened for Gabriel. It immediately framed him as the mature, responsible adult in the room. While one player was acting like the franchise was a joke, the other was treating it with the seriousness it deserved. The fans, who have endured so much and have developed an incredibly keen sense for spotting dysfunction, recognized this dynamic instantly. They saw in Gabriel not just a potential franchise quarterback, but a potential culture changer. The narrative shifted from "here we go again" to maybe, just maybe, this time is different. This single weekend in London forced the franchise to look in the mirror and confront its own identity. In one reflection, they saw the chaotic, undisciplined past. In the other, they saw a calm, focused, and promising future. As the Browns' plane descended back into Cleveland, it carried with it two powerful and conflicting narratives that would define the week to come. The national tabloids and talk shows feasted on the drama, running headlines that screamed Browns in chaos, player benched for London vacation. The story was too juicy, too perfectly Browns to ignore. It reinforced every negative stereotype the team has been trying to escape for years. But within the city of Cleveland, a different story was taking hold. The analysts and fans who had watched the game closely were buzzing about Dillon Gabriel. They were breaking down his poise in the pocket, his quick reads against the blitz, and his command of the huddle. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the conversation wasn't about a quarterback's failures, but about his potential. The contrast was poetic. One player symbolized the impulsive, undisciplined past. The other looked like the composed, accountable future. This split has been the story of the Browns for decades. A team talented enough to dream of winning, but unpredictable enough to lose it all in a single foolish moment. Yet this time, the feeling in the air was different. The usual sense of outrage and hopelessness that follows a typical Browns debacle was replaced with a strange sense of curiosity and even excitement. Fans weren't just angry about the Flacco incident. They were energized by what they saw in Gabriel. Maybe it was the way he handled himself in the post-game press conference. There were no excuses, no finger-pointing. He was calm, direct, and owned the result while still exuding a quiet confidence. Teammates, when asked about him, didn't give the usual canned responses. They spoke of a rookie who commanded the huddle like a vet, a young player who had earned their respect, not with his voice, but with his actions. Something had clicked. The social media landscape, which had been a firestorm of mockery, began to shift. The memes evolved. Fans joked that while Joe Flacco was busy exploring the historic landmarks of London, Dillon Gabriel was busy exploring the greatness within himself. That sharp, almost cinematic contrast between the two gave the fan base something they hadn't felt in a very long time. Cautious, fragile, but genuine hope. Perhaps this wasn't just another headline in Cleveland's endless cycle of chaos. Perhaps this was the tipping point, the moment the franchise was so publicly confronted with a choice between its past and its future that it could no longer ignore the difference. The London trip was supposed to be just another game on the schedule. Instead, it became a mirror, forcing the team to look at a reflection of everything that has held it back for a generation. A lack of discipline, a failure of focus, and a tendency to be its own worst enemy. Dillon Gabriel explored leadership, Joe Flacco explored London, and that simple, stark contrast might just be the thing that defines the future of the Cleveland Browns more than any single win or loss ever could. Because in the NFL, championships don't belong to the most talented teams. They belong to the most focused. And for the first time in a long time, Cleveland might finally have found a leader worth following.